Hearing me okay? Thanks to those that join in the next few minutes here. I'm about to get this going, which is Castelnuovo 1539. The crowdfunding campaign will be wrapping.
Hey, I hope every
Oops, sorry for that. The crowdfunding campaign for this game is about to wrap up soon, and I actually figured out how to do this nifty trick with an overlay. Um, Took me only a couple years of streaming to learn how to. These are the solo rules, but what I want to show you is actually the campaign page. This is kind of fun. But yeah, here's the campaign page for Castelnuovo 1539. Only 31 hours left, and part of the reason why I wanted to do this video was the solo mode was only recently unlocked and will now be part of the game, and I wanted to show it off. So, with that said, already John from Talking Cardboard and myself did a playthrough of the two-player game, and but this definitely seems like a prime type of game for solo play, and that's what I'm about to find out myself here soon. Without further to do, these are the solo rules. So in case you're wondering if it's more of a basic solo system or one with more complexity to it, I would say this, given the complexity of the game, which it's rather light on the wargaming spectrum, the solo rule set is, I would say, rather robust and pretty straightforward. Again, I'm just giving it a shot now. So I will be referring to this as we play. One thing that I know I forgot to do, which I will do now, is update the exposure on my side camera here. So apologies for doing this part live, but it should take just a couple of seconds. I always have this too dark, so hopefully that's better. Yeah, so let me check a couple other things, make sure everything's looking okay, which I think it is. All right, so let's get back to the game board. And the first thing that the solo rules say for setup is you roll a d6 to determine essentially where the Ottoman fleet starts. In the competitive game, the the opponent, the player playing as the Ottoman decides where they want to place their starting fleet. But here, the solo rules say you roll the d6 and you place it based on that die roll. So we will go ahead and do that now, and this I will put over here to the side for first die roll of the game, and they got a 4. So if we go back to the main board here, 1, 2, 3, 4 means that they are going to put their fleet as well as their 4 starting units here. Actually, I'm going to lay down this is a block war game, so from the top view you can't quite see all the units very well. So I'll place my units face down, just to give you an idea. Unfortunately, some of these spaces are limited in size, so it makes laying them down a little challenging. Like this group of 3, I'm just gonna, I don't even think I need to leave them all in one spot. So I'll do this. The rules, I believe, say, I believe for the Spanish player, you pretty much get a lot of freedom where you place your units. So I believe I did that part right. In terms of I'm not breaking any rules with where I have my units placed, but don't quote me on that. Okay, so I have my units placed around the board, and next, just going back to making sure I'm not missing anything on solo setup. So we rolled a d6, we placed the Spanish or the Ottoman forces. So nothing until the end of round 1. So I think from a setup standpoint, for solo play, we're done. So nothing very difficult or tricky about solo play setup, which is nice. And I'll put this, actually, maybe I should set this up as a separate, show the player aid. Well, here's the player aid that I was just rambling about to show the game sequence. And it's pretty straight. It's kind of, well, I shouldn't say, it's straightforward and it's not. You go back, you go, the Spanish and Ottoman player alternate taking phases, or action phases is what they call them in the game. And during an action phase, you're playing cards from your hand. And Ottoman player always is going first, I guess, in a round. Or, yeah, technically he's always going first every round. The type of phase, though, can be either a siege phase or an assault phase, which determines essentially how many cards you'll have in your hand. And that's a siege phase is representing several days, according to the rule book, of preparation. And then an assault phase represents a one-day affair of where you're actually... I guess the Ottomans essentially are actually, sending units out to attack the fortress, and that's represented by the fact you have more cards, you have more of an ability to do things as the Ottoman player. But after each phase, you get to draw back up. You get to draw your cards back because both players, whether it's the Ottoman phase or the Spanish phase, has an opportunity to play cards out of turn. So anyway, this will all make more sense probably as I start playing through the game, but I just wanted to give you the brief overview of the round structure. Now, something that is unique about the solo rules that I do want to address is it mentions that we place a red wooden cube on space 0 of the Ottoman casualty track. This cube is used to track the number of rounds played. At the start of each game round, including round 1, move the cube space forward 1 track. And this is how we keep track of your success from a solo standpoint to kind of, I guess, add some replayability for the solo mode so you can track your performance. Because as it shows here, if you can win in rounds 1 through 6, that's a heroic victory. And so... with that said, if you were wondering, the victory condition for the Spanish player, which, by the way, are the red blocks, in case you're wondering, or that's me, the red blocks, the Spanish player, our victory condition is to get the Ottoman casualty track up to 12, which is simply destroying 12 blocks worth of Ottoman forces. And as you can see, there's a lot of Ottoman forces still off on the side that have yet to make their way to the board. So... that will happen here very soon. So with that said, next part then is drawing the cards for the Ottoman player. And the first round is a siege round, which means they only draw 4 cards. And you draw them face down and resolve them one at a time. Now, for this gameplay, I have my cards down here face up so you can see what I have to play, which is a bombardment card, 2 counterattack cards, and then a march card. So let's reveal the first Ottoman card, which happens to be a attack. Now, if they reveal a card that they can't do... oh, yeah, sorry. They can do this one because it says you can move. They can move. Well, let me double check. Now I have to go and check the solo rules already to see what it says for attack cards. During siege rounds, start forming. Yeah. Okay, it does say, I did find specifically in the rulebook you can use attack to disembark from a boat. Alright, so all of that to confirm, I can definitely, and then we just have to do priority. So in terms of the units that will move on the board, there's only one group that we can move, so that's simple enough. And then normally on any other space on the board, you can only have a maximum of 3 units, except in the water spaces. So going back to that priority list, if it's so 1 to 3 blocks, which blocks to move. So like I was saying, there's only blocks at C, so that's easy to figure out. And then priority chart where they will go to reinforce an area where there's nothing to reinforce. So we towards walls with no enemies. All the enemies have all the wall areas. Well, no, not all the wall areas have enemies. So I actually made a curve. I'm gonna. It's stupid for me to not have a unit in one of the. Actually, let me explain. The Ottoman player is trying to take over these 3, and you can't quite see them very well, but there's 3. Yeah, there we go. Well, there's 3 areas of the Castelnuovo that have like the red burst number, and all 3 of those areas have to be controlled by the Ottoman player for the Ottoman player to win. So they're basically trying to do that before the Spanish player gets them to 12 casualties. Now, going back to the solo priority chart here towards walls with no enemies, I'm not sure how. I think they would move here. Well, actually, this C-zone's. I think they move right. Oh, sorry, I can only do 3, by the way. So I think they move right here. And I don't really see. They technically could move 2 spaces, I believe, is what the. Yeah, you can move 2 with infantry. So all these blocks are infantry, by the way. I don't really see why they would move any more than that space, though, since they're next to a wall and. Well, it does say higher area, so maybe they would move one more. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to say they move one more spot to here because it's a higher area. Okay. So that was we'll say that was the first card. They can't attack because they didn't end up in a. Oh, well, now I'm. Because there's these guys out here, and I was trying to understand if these guys will just bypass them, but I guess they do. So that was the first card for the Ottoman player. So we'll just discard that, and then we will draw their next card, which is a counterattack. And counterattack says... So in this case, this is a double use card, so they can either use it as a reaction or a counterattack, or they can use it for a regular move, which I guess they will do because they still have a unit on their fleet that they would want to land. And again, when we look at the priority chart here, the movement out blocks limited to maximum 2 spaces. I'm still not 100% sure the ideal place to move this one unit onto the board. I for sure would move them there. Then it's either here or here where I think they would move next. And I'm going to put them here because it does seem like the solo chart priority chart is what's the word? Incentivizing going to the walls, which is what this space would be doing. So that's, I guess, the second card for the Ottoman player. Now let's do the third one, and it happens to be another counterattack card. At this point, I don't really think they can do anything. And in case you're wondering why, it's because you can't, as long as these walls are there, those areas can't be attacked. These Spanish blocks can't be attacked by the Ottoman player until those walls are destroyed, essentially. So that's why they're not attacking. And therefore, I think that next card just would do nothing, and then they draw one more card, which happens to be yet one more counterattack, which they're not going to be able to do. Okay, so then it goes back. Now, technically... Oh, yeah, so let me go back to the solo rules, because I don't think they draw... I don't really think they would. So I'm just going to say those cards are discarded, and now it's the Spanish player's turn. And for the Spanish player, there definitely seems to be value in moving things this way now, because that's where a lot of the action looks to be happening. But we do have a Bombard card. Let's take advantage of that while we still can. So Bombard... well... Am I missing? Oops. Okay, so I'm definitely... It looks like I'm cheating. I swear I'm not. I'm going to say there was a cannon that should have been there. Technically, again, you have freedom to set up however you want as the Spanish player, as far as I'm concerned, and I just was following the... I was just following the layout in the layout described in the rule book, just to keep things simple. I don't know if that's even optimized or not. Yeah, they definitely have one of the cannons here. Okay. And that's important because I'm going to do a bombardment, and I'm doing this, by the way. This is the bombardment card for the Spanish player, which, as it says, attack a zone occupied by enemy units up to 3 zones away with 3 dice, and if you're adjacent to the target, you have +1 to hit. And this zone is only 1-2 away, so it's definitely within range. The other thing, though, that I want to clarify, which I'm 90% sure about, is terrain modifier, because I believe if you are at a higher elevation with your artillery, you get a bonus. I'm not... Yeah, okay. So there's a +1 to the die roll for each +1 height. So there's 4 minus 2 is 2. So it's +2 to each die, and then additionally, yeah. So I hit on a 5 or 6, but since it's +2, that makes it 3, 4, 5, or 6 that I'm hitting on. And I did get 2 hits at least. Now, we can check and see if there's any mention of how to take casualties for the... Here it says, the Ottoman player... So the player can distribute the damage by reducing the unit with the highest strength. So... I already know that these are 3 of what are called the AZAV units. But in case you wanted to see for yourselves, these are the 3 units that I'm dealing 2 hits to, and the rules basically say that they're going to distribute them as evenly as possible. So I just rotate those 2, and then I do have to stand them back up and face them towards me again because I'm not supposed to know what they are. All right, so that was my first card, which was the bombardment card. So I now can do an attack. All right, I can use my counter attacks to do an attack, or I also have a march card. I think the problem with the attack is it does make you vulnerable. However, these 2 guys now are kind of off on their own, so they may decide it's worth trying to take out some easy prey there. Let's just go ahead and do that. So these guys can move 2 spaces when using this counterattack card. I'll just illustrate that for you right here. You can move 2 spaces with infantry. So I'm going to have them move 1, 2 here, and now we will have a combat, and we will reveal the enemy unit, the Ottoman unit, which happens to be another one of those Azab infantry. And at this point, there is a if movement, we'll go back to the solo chart here that says if movement triggers combat, resolve immediate cards as combat support. Draw a card from the Ottoman deck if the card has a combat action that can be used, apply its effect. I'm not sure if normally the attacker has to go first in choosing if they use a combat card or not. I don't have any anyway, so we'll just do what the rules say and see if the Ottoman player gets a combat card. Their first card is a Bombard, which is not a combat card, so that just gets discarded. And then they do draw a second one to increase their... And they actually get one here. At the end of the battle, you lose... I'll put it over here. At the end of the battle, you lose 3 power of your Azab units. Your Azab units have +1 to hit. I'm actually going to read the section about that card in the rulebook because sounds like a... So I think they may actually get the benefit from this one after all. But first, I want to describe the priority of attacking because we have a couple different units here. I have my arquebusiers as well as pikemen, and then the Ottoman is the Azab infantry. And the rules go through the combat priority here, which says first combat cards are played. I don't have any. The Ottoman played one of theirs. Then pikemen, if cavalry is present, would be rolling now, but there's no cavalry. So then we move to the next one, which is cavalry, if pikemen are present, but there's no cavalry, so again, ignore that one. Next we do arquebusiers, and when we do have those, so the arquebusiers will roll, and they're rolling 3 die because their full strength, which is 3 pips worth of, or 3 dice, and then also they have this +1 static passive bonus to their die rolls, meaning normally you hit on a 5 or 6, and this time we will be hitting on a 4, 5, or 6. And unfortunately, we only got 1 hit, the 5. So the this hit does get taken immediately by the Azab. And now we would go to the next next part of the combat priority sequence, which is infantry. So at this point, both the pikemen on my side and the Azab roll simultaneously, and we're both only hitting on 5s or 6s. However, this For the Faith card does say that they get +1, so they will. The green dice will hit on 4, 5, or 6. My red dice only hit on 5 or 6, and they got 2 hits. because they rolled a 4 and a 6, and I didn't get any hits. So what that means is I have to distribute 2 hits to my units. I'm going to take them to the pikemen. But for the faith card dictates that the Ottoman has to suffer 3 power of casualties for using it. So they eliminate their own unit, which does mean they go down 1 on the casualty track. Now, I'm not 100% sure they would necessarily do that intentionally. But I'm looking at the solo rules right now in case you're wondering to see if it describes this particular situation. I'm not seeing anything about this specific card. I'm just going to pretend that we'd handled it right. So then my units get to basically take over that spot from the Ottoman player. And that was my counterattack card. Now the rules do say that the Ottoman player will draw their next card just to see if they get a counterattack, which they don't. They drew an attack. Otherwise, then they would counterattack me. Okay, so I do have another counterattack card, but I think it's a little risky to use. And in fact, I want to just now get these guys behind the wall. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this counterattack card simply as a movement card to move these arquebusiers to here. Actually, it makes more sense to put them on the objective, so I'll move them from here to here, which they're allowed to do because these are my walls. And then these pikemen I'm going to move from here to here. And I'm stacking them because I do kind of need to, for my own gameplay, need to know where I'm putting my things. So that would use up my march card, because you can only, when you use a movement, you can only move units from one starting location. Okay, so took care of that part. So at this point, we would be at the end of the... Normally you don't necessarily use all the cards, but this case both sides use all their cards. So we are what's considered... Spanish phase, and the Ottoman player chooses the next type of round. And that's definitely specified in the solo rulebook here, in terms of how this is going to get determined by the bot player for the Ottomans. Type of round. At the end of the Spanish action phase, result is at the end of the Spanish action phase, roll 1d6. If the result is 5 or higher and the following 2 conditions are met, the next round will be an assault round. Okay. So let's just do that first part. If it's a 5 or 6. Basically, obviously, they're not trying to do these assault rounds very often. So it's a 2. And definitely not an assault round. So that's simple enough. Which means then we draw... Each side will draw just 4 cards. So the Ottoman cards are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the Spanish player also draws 4 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we move to the reinforcement phase, which I will bring back up Solo rules, once again, because it does describe how to do their first round of reinforcements pretty specifically here. Place 10 Janissaries and 6 Azab at full strength and standing. Shuffle them and add them to the second fleet alongside. Okay, so what does it say? 10 Janissaries, 1. Maybe that's all the Janissaries. 4 or 5, 6, 7. Yep. So there is exactly 10 Janissaries. And then just 6 Azab. And then it says I kind of shuffle these around. You can see that, you know, to kind of keep the fog of war going that you would have in a competitive game. It's a lot of blocks, but that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, and then going back to solo rules, we roll a d6, and that's where they will be placed on the board. So let's do that now. 1 through 6, and it's saying that we don't want to place the fleet at the same spot that first fleet was, and this time it's a 1. Now I don't know why you would. This is where obviously it's a little, I don't know, not subjective, but it seems not the ideal spot to place all of these guys. If they technically could have put them closer. But what do I know? Okay, and then they have 2 leaders that get placed as well. Agi and what's the other guy's name? Agi and Barbarossa. So they get placed over here. All right. Okay. We'll just have to keep that in mind. Not a big deal. Oh, and then the last part is this round thing goes up to 2 because the reinforcement casualties. There's always this small things that I know I need to keep track of. Casualty reinforcement. An Ottoman unit is eliminated. Place it standing near the board at full strength except for the Janissaries. When deploying reinforcements, add blocks to all areas with fewer than 3 units. Actually, I need to do it now. Quick. So the rules blatantly say, return all Turkish Azab and Sapiha, or the cavalry blocks that were eliminated in the previous round, to the board at full power, but they still count on the cavalry track. In a zone with no enemies where there is a Turkish leader, not in the fleet, or adjacent to him, which makes me think that they just aren't. So this technique, what I'm getting at is this normally would get placed back onto the board, but there's no Turkish leader yet on the board, so I think they would just stay off the board for now. So that's how I'm going to do it. That makes most sense to me. Hey Amberjank, thanks for joining the TikTok stream. Okay, so now let's start resolving cards for the Ottoman player, starting with this card. This card right here. And it's a volley. Okay. So unfortunately for them, they just, I think, get this card discarded. That would have been a good combat card for them, but it is what it is. And they get another volley. I swear I shuffled these. I swear. So this gets discarded too. Okay, now they get another card that they normally wouldn't. Another reaction card that would have been good for them. But trench point and deploy or move one battery. Okay, so this is something I have to read about. In the solo rules here to see what they do with a card like that. Trenches and artillery. If there are Ottoman units in the area with wall, okay, that's not the case. If there is a trench, and no nearby breach, place an artillery battery or move an adjacent one as close as possible to the wall. Blah blah. If there's no trench, place a trench on the highest area, the area closest to the wall around. So I think that they will be placing a trench where they only can, which is right next to the wall, which actually makes some sense to me. Trenches are really good because they basically soak up 2 hits, I want to say. So, wait, is that, yeah, trench. There was another, cheat sheet on trenches that is it 1 point? Something about 1 point and 2 points. Okay, that's what I thought. It's 1 point for in a clear zone for 1 point, or in a rough zone for 2 points. Now, one thing I didn't even say yet. This is a prototype board. The new final board is much more colorful. You can see it on the crowdfunding campaign page. So if that's something that's been bugging you, it's actually something that they definitely are actually going to change. So don't worry about that. But with that said, this is clear terrain, so it only takes 1 trench point for them to put this trench there. And they can only place a trench where they actually have units. So this kind of worked out in a sense for them. So that is that card. And now we do their final card, which is an attack card. And in this case, they can't really do anything with any additional so they get 2, so they can't attack again for the reasons I've described before. Well, they could attack. Technically they could attack. No, they couldn't attack because even you might be wondering what about these guys, but these if you put them on the side, you can see their little triangles. These represent bastions, and essentially it's kind of like a little mini fortress, and they can't just march in and attack these 2 guys, actually. They have to destroy the bastion walls, or these little triangles first. So they can't go to these guys and attack them even if they wanted to, but I don't think they want to anyway. So they're not going to use this card for the attack, but I do think they'll use it then for the trench point, which says you may also deploy or move 1 battery. And they can't, you can only have 1 trench in a space, so they can't add another trench. And I think they can do that. I think they literally would place the battery right there. Actually, let's do a quick solo rule check to see what they say about artillery. If there, oh yes, here we go. So I should have looked at this too. All right, to begin with, if there is a trench and no nearby breach, place an artillery battery or move an adjacent one. Blah blah blah. Okay, so there we go. There was a trench, so they placed an artillery battery, which makes sense to me. And this is now a problem because I didn't take care. I mean, this is a very interesting situation we have. This is already becoming a very strategic because there's a huge group over here, but these guys are right next to an objective, and they're very dug in now with that trench and artillery. So I have to decide how I want to deal with that, which is actually pretty scary. So with that said, the Ottoman player is now done with their turn. I get to now move, or not necessarily just move, but play cards. And I have a friendly fire card, which is unfortunately not relevant here. I have an attack card, which now I'm considering because of, but this is very, I don't think I win a combat here. If I wanted to try and attack it outright, it's the trench soaks up 2 hits, and they have a ton of. There's just a lot of guys there, so I don't think I can actually attack. And I do have a bishop card, which would let me to recover some losses, but it says up to 3 power, and I've only taken 2 casualties so far, so this card would definitely not be. It would be kind of a waste to use it now. So one thing you can do on your turn is called a rest, and when you rest, you just don't play anything. And let me double check exactly what it says for rest. You don't play any cards and discard any cards you wish. I'm going to just get rid of these cards, discard them, and draw 3 new ones. And I drew my Arquebusier. Yep, okay. So this is always a good card to have because it's a reaction card that lets me basically do a reaction fire. And then this mine is a combat card, which is good. Definitely a good card for combat. It gives me 4 dice, additional dice. So that would be the end of my action phase. And then we do that. We do the check. We do the round check thing where we see what type of round. At the end of the Spanish phase, roll 1d6 or roll 5 or higher. So first, do we even roll a 5 or higher? Let's see. And I didn't. I rolled a 1. So that means it's going to be another. Siege phase. That means 4 more cards for the admin player. All right. They still have this huge glob. Well, that still does not preclude them from getting their next reinforcement group in play, which I will read through now. End of round 2, the remaining blocks enter from the north. Roll 1d6 to determine where the leader and 3 random blocks will deploy from the left. Okay. So they say choose at random, so I'm going to kind of mix in. Gosh. I would say with a block game, this is maybe one annoyance is you're trying to not look at the blocks because you're not really supposed to look at the blocks, but you need to know that they're at full strength, and it's how do you shuffle that without not getting, you know what I mean? It's just okay. So we're gonna roll a d6. I'll hope we just kind of forget. D6 to determine where on the north these guys will land. So it's 04, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3, 1, 2, 3. What did I just say? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 there with this leader. Okay. And then the solo rules say we do that twice more. Roll 1d for each group. Okay, so we do it. Oops, sorry. One more time. 6, which I think doesn't count. Oh. No, it does count. That's the furthest right space. So then we take 1, 2, 3. Put them here. I'm just going to roll off to the side to see where these next 3 will go. which is 4, and then it says since we already have 4 there, or it's adjacent at my discretion. So I'll put them here. And then finally, it's a 1, actually, is what I rolled last. Okay, so that's that was the reinforcement, end of round 2 reinforcements. Now we move this cube up 1 more on that track because we're on round 3, and we start the action phase for the Ottomans. It's going to get interesting now. So they have an attack, but I don't think they attack because they can't. So they will just move. And their priority for moving again was always doing units on fleets. And they have plenty on fleet right now. So I'm just trying to see if how they will move. If they move around the little bastion-y thing, I assume so. Trying to see the height. Okay, this is height 1. Okay, so I am going to make the decision that 3 guys are going to go 1, 2 here because they're going to go around, I think. And I don't really know at what point they would ever attack these people based on the priority chart. But the thing we have to now take into account is that leader, because it says for the leader, Agi, has he landed? No. He'll join this group if there are 6 or fewer blocks remaining in the fleet. Which is more than that. Or if the result of the rolling one of a d6 is a 5 or higher. So we will go ahead and roll that to see if he joins, if it's a 5 or higher. And it was a 5. So this Agi will join this group. Oops. Sorry, I put Agi with that group. Okay. So that was the movement. Now, I had the opportunity to use my Arquebusier card to try and soften those guys up. And I didn't. But maybe I will still do that on a future. So that card's gone. We now roll the next. They get a traditional march. Okay, so this time they're definitely picking guys from the fleet. And we'll just take these 3, plop them there. I don't know if, like, this is where I'm actually stuck on terms of how they actually should be moving at this point, because I don't think, even though they could move up to 4, well, yeah, they could move 4. Oh, but yeah, difficult terrain costs 2 movement. So it'd be 1. Well, maybe they would still do that. I'm going to say that they actually still do this, even though it seems a little wonky. But I'm going to go ahead and use this Arquebusier card. Just why not? It lets me roll 3 dice, and I have a +1 to hit. The guys that I'm attacking, I'm just going to put them over here for now. I'm winding them up. 2 Janissaries. Okay, 3 Janissary units. And like I just said, I need A 4, 5, or 6. I got 1 4. Which just means 1 wound is taken by these Janissaries. Which is almost inconsequential, but... So they're going to move there, and then they have another movement point to there, and then they have 2 more movement points to go there. Now, does that actually make sense? I don't know, but that's what's going to happen. And now we go back to that leader. The leader rules. Has Agi landed? No. Or yes, now Agi has. So Barbarossa will join this group if there are 3 or fewer blocks remaining in this fleet. Or if the result of rolling 1d6 is a 6. So now we roll at 1d6, and if it's a 6, the other general will join this group. And it is a 6. So Barbarossa goes way up with those guys. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this for now. It gives you a little bit of an idea of how the solo play works. And I maybe will be able to continue this later. Because, of course, there's still a lot of gameplay left. I'm well aware. Well, let me do a couple more cards for the... Let's me see if I can... I'll try to finish out this round. Because I'm curious how this is going to work out. So volley is their next card. They can't use it. Gets discarded. And then another march. This is where I'm not sure what will happen, because I don't think these guys... They definitely pull from this group. I don't think they're going to go way around that way. So I'm assuming they just go here and are done. Actually, okay. So I'm just real reading this part. If the Ottoman takes fire from an arquebusier card while moving, it will not move any additional units to areas adjacent to the arquebusiers this round. So because I did use that arquebusier card, which I didn't take off, but since I used it, these guys actually, I guess, would just go there to avoid, because then they wouldn't land right next to the arquebusiers. So I should do that. But anyway, going back to here, area adjacent to an Ottoman leader. Okay. So, oh yeah, but the trench. I wanted to see if it says something about trenches. See, this is where I may be a little confused myself. Is if these march cards are supposed to be used for both marching and the trenches when playing as the or in solo mode. Because it says, if possible, resolve both actions on each card. But I don't know if that's... Yeah, I'm not sure. If that means it does the trench as well. See, that's part of the reason why I wanted to take a pause here too, is to make sure I'm playing right. Ask a couple of these questions for you guys. So we will still pause here and see if I can clarify that question. But if you have any other questions in the meantime too about this solo play, please let me know. It's still a straightforward system. This early moving is what's a little challenging for me, because there's just a lot of options when trying to move these units off of fleet. So with that said, thanks for watching so far this initial playthrough of the solo mode for Castelnuovo. My main goal here was at least just to give you an idea of what it looks like on the table when playing solo. Hopefully I did that much, and of course you get to see the solo rules for yourself to see if it's got the right type of solo play format for you. So with that said, please subscribe to Talking Cardboard if you haven't already. We would love for you to watch any streams like this we do in the future, or of course get notifications of other videos we post. With that said, hope to see you all very soon. And check out one more plug here for that crowdfunding campaign, or the crowdfunding campaign for this game. Because again, just 30 hours left. Definitely check out the page for more information about this game. You can get a look at the new refurbished board, which of course looks much more colorful and everything. So, all right.